Hello, everyone. This is Sean with Voices of Racing, and I'm speaking with Andre LaFond. Andre, how you doing today? And I love the trophies behind you. How you doing?
I'm doing well, and thank you very much.
And where are you located?
I'm located currently in New Jersey.
Now, you've been in the sport for quite some time. If we're going to go over a little bit of your stats, since 2017, you've essentially been in over 80 races. You've had about 40 or so in kart. You've also had about another 40 in Formula Ford, but you've also had 19 podiums and 4 wins. And that's pretty amazing for, somebody that's been doing it for, a few years, but you're actually about 25% of the time you're up there on the podium. How does that feel when you get up there?
Yeah, it always feels amazing. I mean, I started, roundabouts in 2018, did 3 years in karts, and about a little less than 2 seasons in Formula Ford.
And here's a shot of you out there on the track. And I think one of my favorite quotes I've heard, especially from a young driver, is when you're out there, you feel like you're in the eye of the storm. When you sent that to me and I read that, I'm like, that's a really great metaphor to the chaos that's around you and for you to just keep on pushing through it. So why did you come up with that analogy and really explain to the viewers what it's like being out there and not just being in the pack, but having to push to the front?
Yeah, so that came to mind because racing, when you're on track, it's always a little bit chaotic, sometimes a lot, but in the car, you're never, at least for me, it always feels pretty relatively calm. It's like there's chaos happening around you, but it's not jostling you quite so much.
And as you've grown over the years, going from kart to Miata to Formula Ford, I know that you got to adapt and overcome. So what are some of the main things that drive you to be a great driver, like part of your character and part of your physical need to be out there?
I mean, for me, racing is always something that it was the first thing in my life that actually really clicked for me. And it's just by far the most natural and best feeling thing that I've ever done. And of course, you always want to win. Like that's the best thing possible.
All right, so we're going to take it back a little bit. Your mom, Robin, your brother, Max, and your dad, Emil. So you've been basically getting a lot of support from them over the years. But, kind of starting out, I know that, and I'm going to show this too. This is a great shot. You on the back of the motorcycle, and you also taking some kung fu lessons. So being fast and training young, let's talk about some of the experiences you had growing up as far as types of sports and things that you were involved in and how that's shaped your mental focus for racing.
So yeah, I mean, my dad is big into motorcycles. He used to be an instructor at the California Superbike School. And he's always kind of subtly tried to push me to get into motorcycles, but I've always stuck to 4 wheels. It just feels very natural to me. Whereas motorcycles, that's a bit alien feeling, but still very cool. And, I started taking Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu when I was 7 or 8 and did that for a good while, did some tournaments, and that was so much fun. But actually, in that picture, my instructor and the owner of the school I trained at, Mike Merkulik, he was an amazing guy. He's unfortunately no longer with us, but I would accredit him with a lot of the lessons I have learned and success I've achieved now. He's been a very big influence on my life.
Something else I want to bring up, and it's something that you've been able to overcome, is ADHD, and something that I was really surprised and thought was a great other explanation of how to get over something is racing gets you in a flow state. So explain that and explain how you got over ADHD and how this has become part of your core and part of your solution for that.
So from what I've heard, ADHD affects different people very differently. For me, it's just I have a lot of excess energy, have a hard time sitting still. But if I found racing and other sports and just general activities that I can channel that excess energy into that and make it something positive.
Okay. So here's a shot of your first podium. And how old were you was this when you were 17 or 18, or how long it took you to get your first win?
I think I was 14 or 15 in the first podium picture.
Okay. And what was
And
that like? You explain that race. Just give a little bit of highlights on that when you were getting to the front and how you secured it. Just explain those moments.
so that first podium was basically right before we started really racing. Like, we had done like a lot of indoor rental racing, and then we did some transition to some outdoor stuff and did like a race here and there, like, I don't know, maybe 3 a year, something like that. And that was at the end of the year. And I got on the podium. We kind of thought, all right, let's try and take this somewhere. Like, this is pretty good success early on. Let's see where we can go.
All right. So here's when you evolved from kart to Miata. And I know that you were able to go up to Blackhawk Farms up in Wisconsin and work with Ben Merwin. He's basically the president of Advanced Auto Sports. So how did you get connected with him? And, they see in that shot in the top corner there that you're kind of back in the pack. And the great story about this scenario is that the weekend you started off, you got there to essentially qualify to get your racing license, and you had never driven stick as of Friday night. Is that right?
Yeah. So we got connected with, at the time I was trying to we were trying to get my FIA license so we could go race Formula Ford in the UK. And in order to do that, we had to do a couple of qualifying national races. We had to do 5. And in order to actually have enough budget left over to race in the UK, we landed on Spec Miata. And we got in contact with Ben, who was great. And he was like, yeah, sure, we can do that. We can fit you in. And my only other experience in cars before this race weekend was a 2-day test in a F1600 car with Team Pelfrey. So get to the track, talking to Ben. Ben's like, all right, have you driven this track before? No. Have you driven, Spec Miata before? No. Have you raced cars before? No. Do you know how to drive stick? No. So as of, Thursday or Friday night, he had me hop in the car and drive around the pits to get used to going through the gears, and then learn the rest of, heel toe. Right foot braking was weird for me, and everything else that came with that during testing, basically before the race weekend.
And I heard that by the end of the weekend, at least from Ben, he told me that 35 cars started and you ended up in the top third. And he said that about, he's got guys there 10 years that can't get up to that spot. And he thought that was pretty amazing as far as your, problem curve of getting up that hill, and you actually, coming to close to the front third of the pack. So speak to that for a second.
Yeah, to be perfectly honest, I had no idea where I was finishing most of the races for the weekend, because the whole goal was, okay, don't do anything dumb, just get your signatures and, drive cleanly. And the whole time I'm like, all right, just keep it calm, just get around, just finish the race. That's all I need to do. Just finish the race. And as I started to get a better feel for it and understand the car and track a little better, I started making more progress to the front. And I felt a lot more comfortable at the front, because racing at the front instead of like the mid-back pack-ish is a lot more consistent.
All right, so let's talk about the training. It's got to be year-round. You've got mental training and physical training both. And here at Brain and Body Method Gym with Mark, kind of explain a little bit about his process with you and how he's not just helped you physically, but also mentally.
Yes. So Mark, first off, is incredibly knowledgeable about not just training, but about the human body and the human body, or then the mental state, and a lot of things that go into that. So working with him has helped me out a lot. I started working with him earlier this year, and they do some alternative things there. They have what's called an ARX machine. So it's strength training, but not like a typical weight. It's a bit different. And they also they're able to simulate altitude training, which honestly, it sucks because it's not very fun, but it's great and it's helped me out a lot. And as far as the mental side of things, they have a fair few, I guess cognition drills would be the right word for it, with reaction times, lights, thinking on your feet, stuff like that.
All right, so here's a gentleman you've been able to work with over in Europe, Ivor Bourne, and there's Lewis Hamilton who is with, and then how do you pronounce his name?
Maverick Vinales.
Maverick Vinales. I want to make sure you get that right. So, how long were you able to work with Ivor, and how would you describe him as a training driving coach?
So I started working with Ivor around the beginning of last year, and first off, I feel very fortunate to have met him and to be working with him. He's a great guy. He used to work for the Mercedes-AMG F1 team, and now he works for the Aprilia MotoGP team. With him, it's less so driver coaching and more so making sure I'm in a good state of mind and helping me be stable and basically telling me what I need to hear.
All right, so this is a gentleman I've been able to work with for a while myself over the past few years, Alan Jr. We were lucky enough to be the ones to do about 50 documentaries about all the favorite memories of the Unsers, and I heard he left you a voicemail. So what was that like to get a voicemail from Alan Jr.?
It was a pretty crazy experience. I was at the gym. I got a phone call. I didn't recognize the number, so I thought, oh, I'll check it out when I get home. And I saw that I got a voicemail. I'm like, okay, I'll check it out. I get home, I open it, and I hear, hi, this is Alan Jr. I hope I'm speaking to Andre LaFond. I'm wondering if you've considered the USF 2000 series in the States. Just like call me back when you can. And I was thinking, like, wait a second, is this real? Like, is this actually, like, this would be a very elaborate prank call, but I really hope it's real. So I called him back, and sure enough, it was Al. It was a pretty crazy experience, and it was a really nice guy.
So what experience have you been able to have with Al? I know that, I was able to interview you in Indianapolis when you were with Future Star, but how would you describe him as a coach and a mentor?
So as far as coaching, I haven't done any driving with him coaching, but I have talked to him a fair bit, and he's incredibly knowledgeable. He's, Indy 500 winner, and he could answer any question under the sun, but in terms of racing, and mainly talking to him to figure out where we should go next. And he's really been recommending that we check out the USF 2000 series and just try and get started in that.
Well, it's pretty impressive that he reached out to you, because what are there, tens of thousands of drivers out there, and you happen to did you save the voicemail at least?
Oh, of course.
Good. That's important. All right. So let's talk about Andy Lowe. You've been able to work with him for a while, and also what was that podium there in the picture, and just talk about your experience with Andy.
Yeah. So Andy's a great guy. Like, as far as, from my first experiences racing cars, it's about as ideal as you could get. He's a great guy, and he's not only a great guy, but like a fantastic team owner. He's always done an amazing job, and got to the UK, I think very late May, to start testing in Formula Ford. And day one, get to Donington Park, and it is pouring rain. And normally, at least from my point of view, a team owner would probably be a little nervous putting a driver that they really have no idea what they're going to do in a car in the pouring rain at a track that's notoriously difficult in the rain. But he was pretty calm the whole day. He's like, yeah, just keep it clean. We'll go over data, just get used to the car. And then had a second day, which was dry at Donington. That was good. And then it was off to Scotland for my first race weekend, which was actually the second Formula Ford National round. So that was kind of out of the frying pan into the fire type experience.
All right, so here's a shot of Jerry and Calvin individually helping you out with your kart and also your Formula Ford car. This is, I believe, at Donington Park when you got first place. Is that right?
I believe that picture is from, at least in the Formula Ford, is from Brands Hatch, but the P1 picture, yeah, that's from Donington. That was a pretty amazing feeling, to have not just Andy, but the whole team that he put together, and a big group of people who have put in a lot of work behind the scenes and work very hard to support you and your teammates, and to just see them happy, climbing over pit wall when you cross the line. That felt really special.
And here's you and some other gentlemen that have felt that feeling before. Being up on the podium, everybody wants that. Everyone wants that every single race, and you got to really work to get there. So, what's the mental state, when you're, let's say, in fourth or fifth and you're coming up on third, and what's really driving you to keep pushing? And maybe a couple stories about when you were there and then something went wrong you had to overcome.
Yeah, something that always pushes you forward is you always want, even if you're in a good spot, you always want something that bit better if you can. You just always want that little bit more, and sometimes a lot of bit more. But yeah, there were times I remember at Englishtown in particular, and in Formula Ford, having a mechanical issue earlier on in the weekend or in qualifying, then having to make it back up later. It's a race at Brands Hatch in Formula Ford where we had an unfortunate engine failure in the first race of the weekend. So we had to start the second race in 23rd, and we ended up climbing all the way back up to 5th in race 2.
Well, that's pretty amazing. So if you were going to be talking directly to, let's say, potential sponsors, what do you feel you really do bring to the table behind the skill, and how would you represent them, moving forward for, let's say, a goal for 2024 or 2025?
I believe a good example to use would be Mark at Brain and Body. Since I've started working with them, I've been able to help connect them with some new clients, some other businesses, a lot of other people, and really help get their message out there. And now they're actually pretty packed, which is great to see.
Well, that's great. And what's your goals for your 2024 season?
So for 2024, I'm looking to get started in slicks and wings, ideally in a series like USF 2000 or GB3.
Okay. And do you have anything lined up for the rest of 2023, or is this just basically training and focus time?
Currently training and focus time. Nothing concrete yet, but you never know.
All right. Well, I appreciate your time today. And Andre, you've had a great career already, but hopefully you have a very long road ahead and a lot more podiums and a lot of P1s. So thank you for your time, and just stay on the line. I'm going to close this one out.
Of course. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
You got it.